Lions series of 2021, and the tour has just got a whole lot more real as this man unveils his chosen 37.
There are days like this. Many rugby players never have it, never experience it. It is special. Because today will determine what we are. It will say everything about us.
Remember the pledges you made. Remember how you depend on each other. You depend on each other at every phase. This is your Everest, boys. Very few ever get a chance in rugby terms to give for Everest.
And you can look at your teammate in the eye and say, I couldn't have given any more. Nobody can ask anything else.
What does it mean to be picked for the British and Irish Lions? What does it mean to you? It's the greatest honour I could ever receive as a rugby player. It's the pinnacle of my career.
You leave as an international, you come back as a Lion.
When you put this jersey on, it asks of you things that no other jersey can ever ask of you.
You're all here for a particular purpose. Your name wasn't just taken out of the hat. You're here because you're regarded as the best of the best.
The mantle you carry and the challenge that you have is to put a marker down in South Africa.
Oh, don't be bad now!
You shock yourself by taking yourself to another level. Because that's what being a Lion's about. It ain't about anything other than that. It ain't about taking part. It ain't about being here. It's about winning.
You are privileged. You are the chosen few. Many are considered, but few are chosen.
And it's down to us, no one else. Squeeze the arms again!
There are times today when you're going to have to reach into the very depths of your soul to get to that ball.
The Lions are special, the legends go with it.
For a rugby player from Britain and Ireland, this is what dreams are made of.
Goosebumps? Well, I certainly hope so. Wynne Jones, the man chosen to carry all of our hopes into this summer's Lions tour and for the next hour or so. It's a very warm welcome to Warren Gatland, the Lions head coach, and to a three-times Lions tourist in Greenwood. Wynne Jones will be joining us a little bit later on as well. Do you know, I'd love to offer you a glass of wine and the chance to just sit back and relax. What a day.
It'd be nice.
That would be very nice indeed.
Yeah.
We'll try and pull the cork a little bit later on. How's it been? How has it been for you as an emotional roller coaster, the chance to declare your squad and, I suppose, take a bit of feedback as well?
Yeah, it's been a long day. You know, it's a busy day. Left the hotel at 7 o'clock this morning, so I'm here, so it's been full on. Yeah, it's nice to finally name the squad. It's the toughest squad that, as a coach, that I've ever had to select. You know, there's a lot of choices, a lot of options. Trying to get the mix right, the balance in the squad against who we're playing, you know, in South Africa and those sort of challenges, world champions as well. And I understand there's going to be some incredibly excited players about being selected, but there's going to also be some disappointed people that missed out as well. And so you've got to be respectful of that. And you know, as a player, we all know what that's like when you don't hear your name being called out and the disappointment that it brings with it. But, yeah, so it just, for me, excited about starting to think about the journey and the planning going on, but also, you know, there were some tough calls too.
I know we're going to talk about some of the selections, and you play your cards close to your chest when test matches are going on. But you're watching videos like that, and you've seen some of the reactions from the chosen players today. How excited are you as a coach? Do the goosebumps still go? Is it like the night before Christmas? Can't wait to meet up. Can't wait to enhance this group. Can't wait to make them better and take on the world champs.
Yeah, no, that's why you're involved in the game, isn't it? That's why you're sort of excited as a coach, and watching the video and stuff. It made me feel like wanting to put my kit on again, and just knowing you're part of something that's unique, part of something that's special, and you, Will, as an ex-player, would know you might not see your teammates for a number of years, and it's kind of like when you see each other again, it's that look, it's that knowing look that you've been a part of something that's pretty special.
Yeah. I think it was a wise man who once said that this is your Everest, particularly in terms of Lions in South Africa. I just wonder, before we come on to the detail of the here and now, whether the last year for you has almost been a bit like going up and down the Himalayas at times. I mean, how have you got yourself ready for what is to come and challenges I imagine you've faced that you would never have foreseen 18 months ago?
I think with me is kind of, my approach has always been, you can't change the things that happen, and it's being able to react and be fluid and things, and things get thrown at you in a rugby situation environment, and all of us have had to be able to adapt in the last 12 months about what's been thrown at us. So I've kind of looked at it and said, yeah, look, I can't affect this, I can't change that. I've just got to go with the flow. And there's been so many different planning scenarios in terms of the tour. Was it going to go ahead? Was it going to be cancelled? Was it going to be in the UK? Was it going to be in Australia? Sort of all those sort of situations, and just being prepared, and that's kind of definitely the way that I am in a coaching environment, and showing the players and the teams that you're involved with, you're having that calmness that good teams and good players can react to change. They can cope with a bit of stress. They can cope with such. I remember back in 2013, I made a terrible mistake because I'd put the team meeting back, and we arrived in Hong Kong at the game. And I think we arrived about 20 minutes before kickoff, or 25 minutes before kickoff. And I'm sitting in the bus thinking, oh, God, this is my fault. I didn't say anything. Andy, everyone's sitting next to me. He's going mental. He's done the bus driver, go around there, get fast, And he turned around to me and said, why are you so calm? And I said, we can't do anything about it, can we? Just got to kick on. The players they got there. They were brilliant. And sometimes you need that sort of adversity, and being able to cope with things that are thrown at you, and that's not always the worst thing. And
can I ask?
Yeah,
we hear about players, and obviously Ben Youngs has decided to pull out for personal. We often don't ask the coaches, especially in this very strange year. How has it been for you, and how has it impacted your family? This sort of logistical nightmare that's taken place.
Yeah, well, I was over here in September, and the COVID numbers were pretty low, and within sort of 5 or 6 weeks they'd shot up dramatically, and my daughter was getting married in December back in New Zealand, and the family were panicking a little bit about me catching COVID or something like that, what was going to happen. I had to sort of go back and isolate in a hotel for 2 weeks, and everything was being done on Zoom calls, so yeah, it was kind of surreal. So you go back to New Zealand and everything's open. Yeah. No social distancing, no masks. We had 160 at the wedding at the beach, and it was brilliant sort of couple of days. And then you come back to the UK and you realise it's a different situation. So, but you that's part of it. You just got to react and deal with it.
Very different to here. I can barely see you. The other you keep shouting, keep waving. The squad itself. Tell us about, I suppose, the credentials and the criteria, and how you weighted those in picking the squad that you've built.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think you're going through all those different scenarios. And we had a meeting yesterday. It was about at least 4 hours, and going through all the positions, all the players. We'd had a couple of previous meetings, and they were easy because you think you got someone nailed on or a position nailed on, but yesterday is the crunch time. That's really when you've got to nails your sort of colours of the mask, and in terms of that. So, everyone deserved, all the players that were selected, all the players that missed out, they deserved us to be incredibly thorough in terms of the way we went through the process and picking the squad. And I look at, there's a number of different situations. So you're looking at the Six Nations, you're looking at players that perform well during the Six Nations. You've got some exciting young talent that you feel you can develop and will get better as the tour goes on. You're looking at players that probably didn't perform as well as they would have liked during the Six Nations, but then what have they done in the past? What sort of trophies have they won? Have they won domestic trophies or European Cups? And you take that in consideration in terms of you want people who've been at the real end of the sort of the sharp end of knowing what it takes to win big matches and finals and stuff like that. So there's a lot, and then you're looking at the opposition who we're playing against, the way that South Africa probably will play. You look at the World Cup and the World Cup final, they're going to bring a huge amount of physicality. We want to go out there and be positive in the way that we want to play, but at times we know we're going to have to roll our sleeves up and we're going to have to match them from a physical perspective. So look, there's so many different things and scenarios, or not so much scenarios, but you're looking at lots of different aspects and trying to use your experience and things that you've learned as a coach over the years to finally get the right mix and the right balance and pick a team.
I want to pick up just two areas that perhaps we might learn a lot about how you want to play. The first of which is the back row. And I think the common consensus was that this was an unbelievably difficult decision for you as a coaching collective to whittle your crew down. You've obviously got second rows who can move into six as well. But when you look at the names and the players behind us, why have you picked a balance of that you've gone for?
Yeah, that was probably for us the hardest position and getting that balance. So first of all, you're looking at players in your back row that can cover a line-out option, and that's a given. And then we looked at you're playing against South Africa, and so you want back rowers with footwork, and you run straight and hard at the South Africans, and they love that. They lap that up. So you've got to have something about you in terms of a little bit different footwork, a bit of pace, some rugby ability and passing and offloading. And I think we've got a really good mix in that back row of players who can do that. Got to be able to compete on the floor and the ground and jackal and turnovers. They're so important in the game. And players that do you talk about someone like Tyg Byrne. He's been absolutely outstanding. And look at his the amount of turnovers he's had when he was first of all at the Scarlets and then gone back to Ireland and then playing for Ireland. He was a top turnover specialist in the Six Nations. So that's his point of difference. And so we're looking for everyone to have a slight point of difference, and we feel there's a really good mix in that back row that's going to be competitive, and being able to get that balance between who's playing at 7 and what's the mixture of 6 and 8 and how does that look. And so some exciting, talented players who I think are going to be good for us, but there's going to be a massive amount of competition for them as well.
So is difference key for you to a successful alliance, to complementary skill sets?
Oh, absolutely. And we will go out there and we'll be positive in the way that we want to play. We know what's coming, not 100%, but you've got a fair idea what's coming from the South African perspective, and you see with Rassie what they've done. I think a number of years ago, South African rugby had probably been influenced by New Zealand and the All Blacks and a bit of Australia, and they've probably gone there and tried to really expand their game. But they've probably, I think in the last few years, gone very much back to their DNA, and it's a power game with incredible speed out wide and players that can finish, perform, great footwork, and so they've got a good balance. But you sometimes you know what's coming, so I think we've got to be able to play in a couple of ways. We've got to be able to go out there, be positive in the way that we want to play. I think from a rugby perspective, it's easy to be expansive, go there, and then if you get yourself into a test match and things tighten up, and you've got to, like I said, you've got to start mixing it. It's much easier to do that than start off being narrow and then try and say, oh, well, now we've got to go and play some rugby. So, very much the same in 2017. We went down there in New Zealand saying, look, we've got to be positive in the way that we want to play, and South Africa's going to be no different. We want to move the ball, we want to score tries, we want to be able to players to get the opportunity to express themselves. We've got some really talented players in the back three, and trying to find that balance between when you've got to get some front foot ball, get across the gay line and get some quick ball and be able to move it. some exciting back rowers, and a front five, that's going to be tested and needs to compete up front.
I want to come on to another area in just a moment, but let's quickly just eavesdrop in on one of those selection meetings.
There's some good aerial boys in amongst this group, mind you, as well, and you put names down there, like there's some real good players there that can go after the ball and stuff, and that. Not just wingers or fullbacks, but you've got centres as well. You look at Robbie Henshaw for one, for starters. He's really good in the end. He's very good. Yeah, he's very good. We had a couple of back against you guys, didn't he? Against England, I think, as well. He's a nuisance. He's good. He's really good.
Really comfortable at 13.
Yeah.
They played 13 that last game, didn't they? Bundy was at 12 against England.
I noticed that Greg has a couple of stitches in the left eyebrow. I hope that wasn't from one of the selection meetings prior to that. But again, just your thoughts on why you've gone with the centre combinations that you've gone for, and how much that's about what you're trying to do and what the threats of South Africa will pose.
Yeah, just again, I keep coming back to that balance. I thought that centre combination of Bundyaki and Robbie Henshaw was outstanding against England. They've got footballing ability, a passing game, and they can bring a directness that's required. And then, so you're looking at that thinking, what's the mix and match of your centre combination? Chris Harris has been really good for Scotland, and then you look at someone like Elliot Daly. We're looking in the midfield as well, and I know he's played there. He gives us a left foot option. He can cover a number of positions. He's got some pace, and so look, that whole thing is about, when we're discussing the team, is not about picking the same type of players. We need to be able to have players that can fulfil a role depending on the way that we want to play, or players that can complement each other.
Can I just pick up very quickly on the centre, because I know you've got a lot of players who have some IP in the bank with you, who've done well for you in 2017. Yep. You talked about European Cups. And we're here to talk about the players that are here. It's harder to talk about those who aren't. But Jonathan Davies must have been someone really difficult for you personally to leave out for everything he's given to all your teams.
Yeah, well, you look back in 2017, he was the player of the tournament, wasn't he? In terms of the way that he played. Look, he's been an outstanding servant, and the hardest thing for him is he dug in deep in the World Cup and carrying an injury, and then come back and had an operation. He probably, from his own admission, would say, look, some of his rugby wasn't the greatest, but as the season went on, he got better and better. I thought he was really good against France in the last game for Wales, and I think it was a tough call in terms of leaving someone out like that. And you look at the players that have missed out. I mean, everyone's pretty much taken a hit. Maybe not so much Scotland, but you look at some quality players that have missed out in England, from the England camp, Wales as well, Ireland. Some big names that have missed out. And so I want to assure people it was incredibly tough for us to do that, but we went through discussing all those sort of players and the combinations, and at the end of the day, we had to make some really tough calls.
Don't envy you those decisions, but you are the man who makes it happen. Lots more to discuss with Warren, obviously, after a short break, but Lions fans know only too well about the agony and the ecstasy of touring South Africa. Let's get the painful one out of the way first of all.
The Lions of 2009. It takes so much to win a test here, let alone a series. Here's Jamie Roberts, and he's through again. O'Driscoll cutting back inside, he's got Tom Croft there, and it's a try to lift Four Nations. If they drive over now, then this place will go wild. The dominance is almost complete here. O'Driscoll, it's through at last. Croft again. Mike Phillips, there's the try! Off the field for the win for South Africa, but only just. And the great thing about a three-match series is that you get another chance. Can the Lions take it? Oh, he's got it out the side to Carney. Goes outside. Carney's going straight. Must be finished. The belief, it's still here. Now, Corey de Pree. Oh, JP Peterson. Brian Habana. And that is some reply. It's Marie. He's got power. It could be a history-making finish. Stephen Jones. It's going to be level. O'Gara. Oh, it's a penalty. There's Mornay Steyn about to write his name into the rugby history books. The Lions series win was the missing link, but no longer.
We can leave a legacy in this last game, in this jersey, for the players to pick up in 4 years' time. And for 4 years, we can leave something that makes sure when people think about the Lions, they think good. They'll think about you, they'll think about this performance, and they can live with it for 4 years. And some of you might be there to pick up the next jersey in 4 years' time. Some of us won't be. Please, please, give them something to play for and something to understand. Good luck.
And Shane Williams is inside! And Shane Williams has his try. Williams has taken it! He's in for another! Monya's away! He's punching the air! Today for the Lions is about so many things, with pride right at the top of the list.
What an extraordinary series that was. And of course, Surrey McGee will be part of our panel for the upcoming series. This time around, no better man to tell you, of course, about touring South Africa. Just before we pick up with Warren, a quick look at the itinerary as it stands right now. This, of course, is subject to change, but obviously there's a warm-up game against Japan at Murrayfield on June the 26th. First game in South Africa is against the Stormers, then it's an invitational 15. The Sharks on Saturday, July the 10th. South Africa A pencilled in for Wednesday, July the 14th. And then the Bulls in Pretoria. And as for the tests, they are the 3 consecutive Saturdays. No midweek game between tests 1 and 2 this time around. We understand Cape Town for the first and then Joburg for the second and third. It's still being worked through, though, yet to be signed off. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not sure about the invitation team. Yeah, so
Right.
yeah,
That's what we've got officially so far. But
right.
there's obviously another one. There's a new version to come. Is that right? When
yeah.
do you
Hopefully in the
expect
next
that?
couple of days. I think they're really close.
Good.
We've done all our planning around, starting up in the High Veld and then 3 games in Cape Town, and then including the first test, and then finishing with the last 2 games in Johannesburg, and the last 2 tests. So hopefully that gets signed off in the next few days, which would be nice, and we can, cross the T's and dot the I's sort of thing. So but we're pretty close.
It's interesting watching you watch back 09, and this is obviously your 4th tour. You look at the heartbreak of 09, you look at 2013, which I imagine was a roller coaster of emotions, and you've spoken publicly about that before. And 2017, there were some pretty challenging circumstances for you personally on that tour as well. I was going to say the blazer, but does the armour fit a little bit better this time around? I mean, from what you've been through and experienced on previous tours, do you feel as well equipped as ever for what's to come?
Yeah, I think you're always learning, isn't it? That's the thing about coaching. You don't know everything about the game, and it's always about past experiences. And I look back at 2009, and this, to a certain extent, some of the things on this tour are going to be similar. We didn't face any of the South African Test players in the lead-up games. And it was going to be the same on this tour, and so we'd won those lead-up games and we'd played pretty well, and we'd gone to the first test and picked a side, and we probably underestimated those test players coming back in, and they really went hard at us and physically hard at us in the first test. We made some changes sort of just after half time and got back into the game, and it was a close game. And then in the second test, I think we made 4 changes in the tight 5, and there was some heartbreak because it could have been a drawn series, and we came away from there thinking we could have won that series. But I think for us it wasn't so much about going to South Africa and saying the paramount thing about winning the series. I think we needed to. There was a lot of speculation and a lot of talk about the Lions and the future of the Lions, and we really needed to get some real respect back into that jersey and perform well. And we came away thinking we felt we'd done that, and then just seeing the interest and that interest that's built from tour to tour and the brand and growing the brand. It's unique, it's special to rugby, it's something we need to preserve in the game. It's the only traditional team, or the only team that has the old traditional tours. I know the numbers of games are a little bit less, but I just think it's brilliant for the players to be involved, to be selected for the Lions, and most of all, the fans. And we know we're not going to have the same number of fans on this tour, but without the fans, it's not quite the same. I don't think you can talk about a Lions tour without mentioning the fans and how important they are and what it's about, and bringing the players together from 4 nations and the people together from 4 nations to support one team, and that's iconic and it's unique.
Just briefly, does anything pierce your thick skin. Does anything get to you? Is there anything that upsets you about this?
I cry in sad movies and stuff when I was those. Look, I'm not.
But in terms of what you hear in this selection, is there anything that just is it frustrate that might be the right word in terms of the noise that gets around it, or are you just happy that it's just opinion?
It is opinion, isn't it? But that's great. It creates amazing debate, and I keep saying about selection is just a matter of opinion. And you understand, I get excited about, and I have no problem with people disagreeing with me because that's fine, and everyone's entitled to their opinion about who should be selected and who should be in the team and who should be in the squad. And without that, we wouldn't have the amount of interest that we've got, and that's perfectly fine. So there's no issue with that with me. I do struggle sometimes when people are really, really personal. I know there's been a lot of issues about social media recently, and when people are pretty vitriolic, that kind of sometimes you just got to move past that and move on. And I think you guys know and have experienced some of that as well. So, and that's just unfortunately part of sort of modern day sport.
Yeah, I was just thinking you should join Twitter for the summer at Warren G for feedback. Be one or two of those going in. Interesting, and you've got such a great history with big calls and big calls that come off. But it's interesting that 19 of your Lions have been there and done it before. All 5 of the Saracens are in that camp as well, and there'll be 1 or 2 who say, not necessarily at their best for England, and obviously, playing in the Championship this season. No Billy Vunipola, obviously, as the sort of headline of that lot. But is that because of the credit in the bank that they've got with you, the 5 that you've gone with?
Yeah, for some of them, yeah, definitely. Look. Yeah, I'm not adverse to making big calls, and you've got to back yourself and you've got to believe yourself. And there's a lot of discussion with the other coaches, and don't think if people think it's Gatland making the call, then they're wrong. I mean, we've thoroughly gone through and debated things with the other coaches about selection and who should be on the plane, and we've got to believe that we can create an environment that the players are going to thrive on and we can get the best out of them. And that's important, that you back yourself, and that it's getting that right between having an that touring balance between working hard, having a bit of fun, having a few laughs, enjoying yourself, knowing when to switch on, when to switch off. And if you can get that right, and I always talk about the experiences that I've had with the Lions, I think the on-field stuff takes care of itself, and if you can get the off-field stuff right and players are happy and enjoying that. But I sent out letters to prospective players because this is a different challenge, and it's making sure that the rugby, like I said, will take care of itself, but making sure that there are some challenges from being away from family, being in a bubble. That how we're going to deal with that. And
just on that, may I ask, without betraying anyone's confidence, obviously Ben Youngs has pulled out of the tour. Were there any other players?
No, there wasn't. No, and that's why the first thing was to send the letter, because I understood. For some players it was difficult. Being involved in the last 2 campaigns in the autumn and the Six Nations, and being in those bubbles and the challenges that made. And you look at someone like Ben, who's got a young family and his wife's due not too far away, and then to potentially be away for a couple of weeks on camp and then 6 weeks on tour, and then maybe having to isolate when you come back. That's not easy. But I kind of back, and I respect his decision enormously, and I've got a huge amount of time for him as a person and as a player. But to see the response of, we sent out, everyone kept saying, we sent out 50 letters, we sent out 70 odd letters. I mean, that kind of puts into perspective how many people were in our minds. And everyone apart from Ben came back and said that they were available for the tour. So I think it shows the power of the brand.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's bring in the captain. And interestingly, those of you who love your rugby history, Alan Wynne Jones is the 5th consecutive second row to lead the Lions to South Africa, following in some pretty illustrious footsteps. Willie John McBride, of course, in the Invincibles of 1974. Sir Bill Beaumont, 1980. Martin Johnson, of course, victorious in 1997 before going on to lift the World Cup. And Paul O'Connell in 2009, who was, of course, Alan Wynne Jones' second row partner for much of that tour. Good evening to you, Skipper, and many, many congratulations. I know how much you love a full day of media, and we're absolutely delighted to be last on the list. Have you got a delivery ordered and a hot bubble bath waiting for you once you're done today?
Yeah, I'd love to say yes, but I think my wife might have other plans, to be honest.
Good. I'm very glad to hear it. Keeping you on a tight leash, I hope. Many, many congratulations. It's been a long day for you, as we've said, but give us a bit of you. I know that you don't like to get involved in this kind of thing. I know you've got a very good media handbook, but have you allowed yourself the opportunity of a bit of a fist bump, a wink in the mirror? Have you asked your wife for a cup of tea for the captain of the British and Irish Lions, that sort of thing? Have you drunk it in?
It's been a pretty surreal day, I think, since I had the call from Gats. He called it apprehension. I'd like to call it decision making, but there was a bit of a pause, but it's not every day you get the question, would you like to lead the British and Irish Lions? And I think to take that in as a professional, irrelevant of your age, what you've achieved is, I think you could forgive me for delaying on the exception, but, I was never going to turn it down. And, to be able to share it with the family and be added to a list of names that have gone before and done the job is, like I say, surreal.
It certainly is. Tell us a little bit about you and the history, with the Lions. You've obviously done 4 tours before. You've been there, you've done it, you've got the T-shirt. But does this opportunity feel different?
I think very much so. I think, it's funny, I remember watching 1997, I think it was a school assembly, I think, a long time ago. Jinx was part of that tour, Gregor Townsend, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Jinx for quite a while now, and I still enjoy every day I get to work with Jinx, and to go on another tour with him in particular is massive. But obviously I've been there in 2009, and as Gats alluded to earlier, the fallout of people questioning about the Lions and the future it had, to go into what we did in 2013, and then you sort of leave a legacy open in New Zealand in 2017. It just shows the passion and the emotion it brings for players and fans alike.
Alan, from the very start of this tour, what role do you believe you have to play as captain, from meeting up for the first time to shaking hands at the end of the tour, first week in August?
It's funny, I think those thoughts probably start to open up, since Gats has asked, really. And I think for me it's going to be an open book approach. I think because it's going to be bubbled up, it's going to be different, it's going to be like no other Lions tour I've been on. You were going to have to drop those guards and get those bonds and relationships going, because the rugby stuff is always a lot easier when you have those open chats, the micro chat that you need on the pitch, and that comes off field first. It's not about blending nationalities, it's about working with people first, and ultimately we're going out there to do a job, which is win the series, and that'll be a very open fact and desire from my messaging from the start.
And when you talk about working with people, there's a long timeline now until the first meet. Do you intend to contact any potential senior leaders who you'd like to work with, and messages you'd like to hit, some notes you'd like to hit from the very first day?
Well, I spoke to Gats briefly, about the approach and the leadership stuff and how you want to do it. Open to doing that, but I'm very sensitive to people that are involved in domestic games and club rugby that they need to do. I think we potentially could cut some feelers out, so we're just a bit ahead of the game, because I know there's been catch-up on logistical stuff. But yeah, we're open to do that so we can get ahead of the start. It would make sense, but I think let the dust settle on what's been a long day and an exciting day for a lot of people, but I'm sure it's going to be an option moving forward.
Just quickly, Alan, Wynne, want to ask Warren, simple decision, the history you've got together. We're trying to make him blush, I think, the idea of it, but how easy a call to make the man your captain?
Yeah, I think it wasn't tough. I think, first of all, it's the respect that he's got in the game, what he's done as a player. Firstly, that was easy. The fact that he led Wales to another Six Nations championship, that very much sealed it for me. I think he's under no illusion, because I'm quite excited about him being captain now, because he knows that the challenge is he's got to go out there and perform, and he's got to play well. And I know how competitive he is, the standards that he sets at training, what he demands of himself and what he demands of other people. So I know his goal is going to be, I'm going to lead. There are other people that you're going to call upon to be. He's not going to be playing in every game, so we're going to need other people to be fulfilling that role as well. But his mind will be firmly on, I want to play well, I want to be selected for the test. There's no guarantee about that. He fully understands that, because you've got to give other players the opportunity that if they're playing better than Alan Wynne, he may not be selected, but I know how competitive he is, and he'll relish that challenge.
Never easy ride, is it, working for Warren Gatland, Alan Wynne? Good on you. Well done today. Many, many congratulations. I hope you do get to take the lid off and have a proper sing-song in the car on the way home. You thoroughly deserve it. Very best of luck to you and your men for what's to come. Thanks for joining us, Skipper.
Cheers, thank you.
Good man. He's very good at keeping a lid on it, isn't he?
Yeah.
Perhaps why you've picked him. We, of course, have done the agony for the Lions. Let's turn our attention to the ecstasy in 1997.
Being picked is the easy bit. To win for the Lions in a test match is the ultimate.
It would be nothing short of sporting disaster in this country if South Africa were to lose this series to the Lions. Andrews with the catch and the drive to follow. Straden's in there. They're almost up to the line. The try has been awarded. Oz Duran. Dawson getting away. Matt Dawson. Still going Dawson. What a score from Matt Dawson. Out to Rothburn. It's floated out to Jenkins. Must be Tate. It's a victory. The Lions have won.
Cape Town is stunned.
They've done it once. Can they do it again? Honorball to start, and not start particularly well. It's a long way out, but Neil Jenkins has caught it quite beautifully. What a kick! They've gone out, running for Butler. Now it is a try. Scott Gibbs on the charge. Oh, look at him go. Dawson, have they got the self-belief? It's Guscott Grant. It's there. Martin Johnson has led the Lions to a victory. This is a truly great rugby achievement.
I can't quite believe it. It's a dream come true. Chris
It's an amazing, really proud moment and such an honour to be named in the squad.
It was pretty sketchy because my name's always last. I thought I didn't make it towards the end, but yeah, luckily enough my name came out.
Number 6 to 14.
And yeah, just childhood dream come true, so very chuffed.
You've got a grin as wide as the ocean. How do you feel?
I can't believe it. I'm absolutely shaking. I've just been told not allowed to swear, so I'll struggle to put it into words, but no, I'm absolutely delighted, over the moon.
Just brilliant reactions, and very good to see that Hamish Watson has got his main ready to go ahead of the tour. Let's get some reaction from South Africa, and let's bring in this man. It is a very good evening to our smiling assassin, Mr. Bryan Habana. How are you? Good to see you. You've had a busy old day of it. Good to see you at the launch itself. The dust is beginning to settle a little bit. The squad is out there now. Give us, Bryan, a snapshot of the reaction back out in South Africa.
Yeah, it's almost surreal that it's not actually happening. I think, there's been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt cast over whether it's going to be in South Africa, in the UK, potentially even in Australia. So I think now that Warren has gone out and chosen his captain and his team, Jacques Minnaar, but definitely sat watching that team selection and the announcement with bated breath, and he now starts putting his plans into place. So extremely excited. I think it's going to be weird not knowing that there's no fans and how that affects the South African players. But yeah, I think the excitement is now really starting to build, Alex.
So Nienaber obviously has taken over from Erasmus, the man who masterminded that World Cup win. We haven't seen the box since that wonderful night for South Africans, certainly out in Tokyo. But we've asked you to pick what you think that starting 15 for the first test might look like, and we'll bring that in at this point. The question I also want to ask you is it a problem that the Box haven't played since then? Is it a quiet advantage, or is it just totally irrelevant?
I'm not quite sure if that's a smile on Warren's face or not, but it's a difficult one to answer. I think a lot of those players that I've sort of put in that team are players that are producing, high quality rugby in Japan, in the UK, in France, and in South Africa. So, resonating of what happened on the 2nd of November 2019. But again, that's in the past. These players that I've sort of selected are players that I really believe, Jacques is going to be looking towards from a seniority perspective, an experience perspective, to go out there and do the country proud.
I'm loving
this. Do you think any of these players delayed retirement just to make sure they could have a crack at the Lions?
No, I mean, you look at someone like Dwayne Vermeulen, who's probably the oldest in the squad. Looking at those names, player of the final in that final in 2019, he was South African Rugby Player of the Year in what was a very condensed year-wise. So. No, I don't think there's any players. Willie Leroux has been playing exceptional rugby over in Japan and forms a really good back three unit with the likes of Makazole Mapimpi and Cheslin Colby. So the Lions is just such a unique experience if you come from the Southern Hemisphere. It's once every 12 years, unless you potentially France Steyn. But, they're Test Centurions that never get an opportunity to play against the Lions. So, I really believe those players are there purely on merit and players that will definitely go out and do the country proud.
I'm afraid it's really short and sweet with you tonight. We are so pleased that you're part of our team coming up for the series in the next few months or so. Look after yourself in the meantime. We'll speak to you a lot more in the coming weeks. Bryan, thank you very much indeed. Go well for now. Good on you. Unfortunately, we're sort of tight for time. There are so many other things that we'd love to get into. Plenty of time for that in due course. I just sort of want to pick up, I suppose, on, as you look at this tour and what's to come, you've touched already on some of the challenges and you recounted that incident with Andy Irvine and being late for the bus. How much is this tour almost about being as professional as you possibly can be? And how much is it about celebrating the old school and just getting on with it, whatever comes your way?
A bit of both. Right. I think the players, even my time in Wales, you're just seeing how, as the game went from that amateur, it took a few years, but you see players now who are incredibly professional in the way that they train, they look after themselves, go through campaigns without having a drink, and maybe a couple of quiet beers, and maybe let their hair down at the end of a tour or end of a campaign. So look, we've got to make sure that we get. I talk about my experiences with the Lions, and if we get things right off the field and we get some harmony off the field, I think we've got a chance. And I'm conscious, and any team that I've been involved with is about talking about how lucky we are to be involved in professional sport and all the benefits and things that come with that, but also reminding players that, and for me, it's always about family, and family comes first, and we've got to make sure that the challenges that are there, that people that they leave behind, whether it's girlfriends or wives and kids, and that, we've got to be conscious of making sure things are right at home, and if we get things right off the field, then I think it takes care of the things on the field, and we get a better product at training, players are happy, and we get better performances on the weekend. So, I mean, those are the sorts of things that are important to me. And
how do you create an extended family? So they're worried about they're going to look after the family and make sure everything's at home, but you have to create a Lions family to understand what makes players tick. How do you go about doing that so quickly?
And that's the huge challenge, isn't it? It's kind of like you're bringing those players together, and I've been lucky enough, and I've seen, I think you would know and understand, but I've seen two jerseys have a massive impact when a player puts it on. And I know everyone wants to play for their national team, and a huge amount of pride being selected for whatever country you play for, but the Lions jersey, when a player puts it on, and the other one was the All Black jersey, I've seen, almost like a physical change, and the expectation, the history, what it means, who you're representing, so those sort of values, and we've seen a lot of people talk about it in terms of the previews and stuff, and Telfer and McGeechan and those sorts of things, and I'm conscious of that, and respecting the past and what it means to be a Lion, and the privilege that these players have in terms of the opportunities they create. And so those sort of things taken for granted to a certain extent, but if we can get things right, that Lions family right, and often it was about players going back to players sharing rooms and spending some time together. We're not going to have that opportunity. We probably need a night out together to let our hair down. Yeah, to let our hair down. And sometimes it's the quickest way, to players can relax and start taking the mickey out of each other and creating a bit of banter. You want to have some fun as well. You've got to get things right, and the experiences of the players that have been involved in the autumn campaign, the Six Nations, some of the things that they did to alleviate some of the boredom and the pressures and the isolation as well, and how we deal with that. So look, there's lots of things, and it's not just about the things that I do. The players are so important. I mean, I think Alun Wyn Jones will do a brilliant job as captain of the Lions, but he's going to have a lot of support around him. He's going to have some experienced players that are going to be there to back him up, and if we can create something that's special off the field, it'll be so meaningful off the field. I mean, one of the things I've got to do in the next few weeks is get the numbers of all the players' partners and give them a call and just sort of say, look, I understand you're letting your boyfriend or you're letting your husband go away on tour and the challenges it's going to pose, but please, here's my number. If there's any issues, give me a call, because, like I said, that the family and the people that you're leaving behind are so important, and if we make them, if we bring them into that whole group, then I think we get a massive amount of buy-in, and I think we can all go on this journey together to hopefully play against the world champions away from home and hopefully get a win.
It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
The very, very best of luck to you and your men. Well, lovely to see. Lots more to come, of course, over the next few weeks and months. And that is it from us tonight. A new chapter begins for the Lions. But as it does so, it is very important to remember as well that another chapter closes. As rugby, Wales and the British and Irish Lions say goodbye today to one of their favourite sons. We'll be seeing you soon.
He doesn't get mentioned very often, but players, he was a player's player. And you talk to players who played with him and against him, and they realise what a great player he was.
When you talk about leadership and captaincy, you know, captains of a team fall into different categories. He was a kind of teacher. He had all the knowledge of the game.
He was probably one of the best passers and timing of passes in world rugby.
Me as a winger playing outside him, it was a joy and a pleasure to be there, because I knew when John Dawes passed me the ball, it was going to be a good ball, something that I as a winger could do something with.